enjoy it is if you are rich and aren't a Christian. If you're a Christian, you're usually poor, and you just watch the pretty young girls in Telegraph with their boyfriends who have their 10 to 12-year-olds who are 10 to 12 years younger than you, and you feel old and lonely and depressed because the thing you hope for, uh, God, seems so removed and non-existent. Over now to depressed person. April 12th, 1991, Friday afternoon. I discovered something interesting in Jeremiah 51. It says in Jeremiah 51, verses 1 through 2, "Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I'll raise up against Babylon and against those that dwell in the midst of those who rise up against me, a destroying wind, and will send unto Babylon, Iraq, fanners that shall fan her, and shall empty her land. For in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about." Anyway, I looked up the word fanners and discovered that in the original Hebrew that it doesn't mean fanners. It really means to be strange. I believe Jeremiah didn't have a word for what he saw, so he put the Hebrew word zer down, equaling to be strange. What has got me a little excited about this, and seems to show that there is a God who is behind all this horror that is now on the poor Kurds, is that it was translated into English as fanners. Since Jeremiah was seeing the future, he didn't know what helicopters were, so he put zer, equaling to be strange. Interesting how helicopters look like fanners, big flying fanners, fans. And it just so happened that it was the Iraqi gunships that emptied the Kurds out of Iraq. I believe that the helicopters were the destroying wind that came upon Babylon. So, this is how I translate Jeremiah 51 verse 2. "And I'll send unto Iraq helicopters that shall scatter her, and shall empty her land." And they did. "For in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about." Helicopters really do man the ground in their flight, and they really did fulfill that scripture. Anyway, even though my faith in God has increased due to that scripture, my hope in the rapture has stayed about the same. I have a feeling that this hell on the Kurds will probably go on for another 3 years, or who knows how long. Bush and the world, because Bush and the world really don't give a shit. They really don't. They don't care about human life, just cheap oil and Kuwaiti money. The whole world is run by greedy hypocrites. Of course, there is nothing new in that. There's no new revelation about that. What else? Uncle Paul and Aunt Evie just left after a 5-day stay. What else? Oh, I read the New Testament Apocrypha called the Other Gospels, or the Gnostic Gospels, and, well, some of them were definitely strange. I could see why they weren't put into the Bible. Although the Gospel of Thomas seemed to have a lot of Christian-sounding truth in it, the ambiguous sayings of Jesus and his disciples really turned me off. Some of the sayings made me think that Jesus and his disciples were experimenting with angel dust or LSD. It seemed as though Jesus was trying to be very profound. I think someone wrote the Gospel of Thomas just to make fun of Christ and his disciples. He threw in some well-known truths from the New Testament, then added a bunch of ambiguity to it. If it's one thing I hate, are ambiguous statements, which the Gnostic Gospels have a lot of, and which, I'm sorry to admit, even the Bible has. To me, that is. Shakespeare